Okay, we'll see if we can't get started. Hey, Crystal, do we have you up here? Try to unmute.
Can you hear me?
I got you now. How about me?
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. It's 7:00, 7:01. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
For those who aren't here or don't know, this is a Zoom session for LDR 490, spring session 2nd. This would be March 15th, 2022. And we're going to do this for probably about 30 minutes, but Crystal, hang in there as long as you want.
Okay.
I will be here for 30 minutes, but if you need to leave or you don't want to stick around for the full time period, that's up to you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So normally the way I do these is I will talk for a little bit just to kind of set the stage and kind of orient everybody. And then what I also will do is cover a couple things that I'm seeing and then leave most of the time for questions because that's what it's about. But first, I'm trying to share my screen, and hopefully you can see that. This should be you should see the Moodle shell up front. Our two books that we're reading: the Without Reservations by J.W. Marriott Jr. and then Leadership Secrets of the Salvation Army by Watson and Brown.
Yes.
You got those. Okay, so on the Moodle shell, we have announcements. I always tell everybody to make sure you're at least reading those because those will give you the weekly assignments and then some other little things that I'll throw out from time to time. The excuse me. But what gets in the weekly announcements should match what is in your Moodle shell. So, for example, for week 2, the weekly assignments will cover that. You have a discussion forum. The answer is, or the initial post, I should say, your answer to it. In this week, we're going to talk about, what you found most interesting and explain the value of it and why it's important to you. And then how is it something you can use in your role as a future leader? So good question. It's again, not one that you're going to quote unquote find an answer for in the true sense, but it's one that you'll come up with, and it's really just an open-ended one, obviously. And then do your initial post by Wednesday at 23:59. I used to say do it by midnight, but everybody would get confused as to what midnight is on either Wednesday or a Thursday. So we do 23:59. So I've learned my lesson. And then of course I'm going to want you to. I'm glad you and your fellow classmate Amanda figured it out. Obviously, you can only do really one post since there's only one other student. But again, that's the price we pay for having limited enrollment. But in the end, I think it still provides us what we need. And then your written assignment is pretty good. This one, we're covering risks. Okay. And so risk it's related to leadership. Since this is a leadership course, a leadership capstone, obviously, when I'm looking at these two books that you're reading on Marriott and on Salvation Army, we're going to pull out leadership aspects of the two protagonists, if you will. The main characters of the books are the guys who wrote them, obviously. But we could also pull out others. But the key is to individualize your reading, look at it through the framework of the CEO or the author when he was writing, and then pull out the leadership concepts, principles, theories, models and the like. And then that pretty well does it for the week. The battle rhythm, as you can see, is really fairly simple. It's discussion forum and written assignment each week until we get to the third week. And I'm showing week 3 on the Moodle shell, you should see. We start talking about this final project. And final project is simply just a final paper for you two. There was a time where I did something a little different for this course, but that necessitated a bigger class. Anyway, so the final paper is due on Sunday, 1 May. But what has happened here is you are assigned chapters to finish over the next couple weeks. What's going on there? What's going on there is that this paper is worth 50% of your grade. And the first time I did this course, I had some people wait until the last minute for obvious reason and not to be surprised. And it showed, and that was a pretty heavy price to pay on the course. So what's happening here is you're going to write your chapters of this paper over the next few weeks. And this is kind of getting everybody ahead of the power curve. So think of it as chapters in a textbook. You're writing your textbook on leadership. And each chapter in this paper, this book, if you will, on leadership, you're going to cover an area. So the chapters, if you will, would be a chapter on, for example, mission statement, a chapter on risk, a chapter on motivation, a chapter on ethics, a chapter on communication. In other words, pull a leadership principle that you've covered in previous coursework. And in there, I give you those other courses you should have had, 340, 360, 400, 440, 460. And then cover that in your chapter. And then remember to relate a piece out of the Salvation Army or Marriott book or Marriott book to that principle. In other words, pull the principle out, show me that you can define it and understand what it is, and then give me an example of how Salvation Army and Marriott were successful in that or unsuccessful. Really kind of your call. So I think with that, you probably see what we're doing here. We're demonstrating mastery of the objectives of previous coursework by bringing those into your class, while also showing that you mastered the 2 readings, one on a nonprofit and the other for-profit organization. And then chapters each week as part of that paper. And then at the end, you'll assemble those chapters, those 5 weeks of writing, into your final paper. That would be just at that point, all you're really writing is an introductory paragraph and a concluding paragraph, and then you've got your papers all written. Now, because this is University of Mount Olive, an academic environment, I can only grade your paper 1 time, which makes sense. You tend to only want 1 grade. And so what'll happen is, it's really, I tend to leave it up to students' choices, but in the end, they always choose the latter, not the former. So I'm going to make that assumption here with you and Amanda, and that is, I can either grade each chapter individually as it's being written, and that becomes your final grade as I average it at the end, or you let me just read your chapter. I offer you some feedback each week in the form of just some, hey, it looks like you're tracking, or if I was to grade this now, it looks like a B, you might add something. And then at the end, work it, turn your final paper in on 1 May, and I grade that final paper. So I'm going to open it up here to you, Crystal. In the end, how would you want me to grade this paper? Each week?
I'd rather you,
or at
each, yes, at the end, but each
Okay.
week tell me what what's missing, you know.
I'm shocked to hear that, because that's the way that's the way everybody usually decides. So hey, that makes great sense, and that's exactly what I'll do. Is so on week 3, you're going to write your first chapter of your paper, and this is actually kind of fun. If we're not having fun here, we're doing this wrong. But what's fun about it is that these become your chapters. Okay, what you've had to deal with other people telling you about leadership now for all these weeks. This is your opportunity to get into those areas that you think are the most pressing, or the most important to you, or really just the ones that you want to write about. And then if you notice, each week in these weekly assignments, we're covering an area of leadership. So last week I had you talk about mission statement. This week I'm going to have you talk about risk. Next week is probably, oh, I didn't even look at it. Probably it may be morale. It may be, let's take a look real fast if you got a second. Yeah, okay. In this case, it's how does Salvation Army and Marriott put people first? And by people, I mean the people that work within the organization. Okay, again, leadership. We're talking about how people influence their subordinates and those people that are assigned to them. So when I say people first, the focus of next week's written assignment should be on the leadership subordinates of the organizations of Salvation Army Marriott. And I'm not talking about their clientele. Okay. So, so chapter 1 of your paper could very well be, mission statement. And chapter 2 could very well be risk. In other words, feel free to use what you've written for the weekly assignments as the basis of a chapter. Obviously, you're going to have to expand upon what you've already written, and develop out a little bit further to work. But you've already kind of done the work. So, or you could just pick a completely different topic. It's up to you. Okay, so I've talked enough here. Crystal, I hope what I've shared with you makes some sense.
It does.
All right, so I'll open it up. You got any specific questions for me?
No.
All right, how about some method behind the madness? Let's talk about what we've done and see if that helps open up anything. A discussion forum last week. We talked about the timeline, and again, oh, sorry about that. I've got system's not very happy with my quality of video. I hope you're able to see it okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and I apologize for the casual dress. I actually got myself out walking today, and I needed a hoodie
Oh,
because it
that's
was
fine.
just chilly enough to require it. Okay, so last week we talked about the beginnings of the organization. I had you do a timeline of events, and again, this is a leadership class. So what I wanted you both to pull out were 3 to 5, and of course I'm a 3 by 5 guy. 3 to 5 events, which you did, and then examine from the importance of from the perspective of leadership on the organization and post that, which you both did, and did a fine job with it. We can always do a little bit better, and or we could always do a little bit worse. And again, it gets down to time and effort, and
Okay.
then try to figure out what it is that I'm looking for, and getting used to me. But you both have had me for previous classes. And Crystal, if you don't mind my saying, I'm
Mhm.
tickled to death to have you back. I looked at it, and I think the first class we had was, oh my goodness, a number of years ago.
Right.
And so I'm just again tickled to have you back in class. That's great to see.
Thank you.
So yeah, you did it. You came up with 5 on each, and then we want to expand those a little bit. So
Okay.
if I had to ask you, I like to ask the question, so what? And that's to kind of put everybody on the spot. But when you come up with an answer and tell me, as an example, in 2009, Marriott launched the Autograph Collection, which is a chain of upscale hotels, then
Mhm.
I'm looking at that thinking, so what? So why is this important, or needs to be highlighted to us from a leadership perspective? And you did cover that. You got down into um, your reasoning for these. You talked about the value, which is spot on. Okay. If
Mhm.
I am an organization, profit or nonprofit, it matters not. Unless I bring value to my customer, I'm out of business.
Right.
I mean, that includes state or city government.
Mhm.
If I don't provide enough value to the taxpayer, they're not going to pay the taxes, or they're going to leave. So um, that becomes a very good answer from a leadership perspective as
Mhm.
to why in 2009 Marriott launched this chain. Okay, in other words, they see a gap that needs to be filled. It's innovative in that respect. Okay, do a gap analysis, right? And
Mhm.
then we go on from there. Um, and that's what we're after. And I think you did a good job. And then part of this also becomes, as you looked at these 5, and then you did your weekly assignment, a mission statement. One of the things I was looking for in that was, um, could you relate these uh, these 5, to Marriott's mission statement? Um, and you did fine. You picked up on the fact that, in a sense, it doesn't appear Marriott has one, although they do. It's just not as quite um, put out there as the norm. But remember, a mission statement is that enduring statement of what the organization is or will be.
Mhm.
And so, as we look at companies, if they are adhering to their mission statement, then that makes perfect sense, because that's the reason for being, right? You want to adhere it. Sometimes companies get out of their lane a little bit, and they start
Mhm.
chasing. It's kind of what we call mission creep. They start finding new things to do, and sometimes those things don't relate completely to what they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And when that happens, we start to find some problems. And you noticed or you will notice in Marriott, they at one point tried to get into hospice care, and because hospice is just like running a hotel, right? All you do is
Mhm.
just put somebody up for the night, and then you only do it for temporary because they leave. Not to be mean, I don't mean to make light of hospice care, but
Right.
it's certainly not for permanent residency. Anyway, and you would think, and that's what Marriott thought.
Mhm.
You'll find out that it ate them alive, and they had to get out of it real fast because they found out that the business model of hospice care is medical treatment, not uh, providing somebody a place
Hospitality.
to stay. Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, um, in the response to what you and Amanda did, I provided you just some thoughts and went through my organizational success slide. You've seen that before.
Mhm.
7 keys to organizational success. I don't care what organization it is. If you don't recruit, if you don't promote, if you don't make the right people senior leadership, if you can't organize your outfit, equip, train, and execute your mission, you're in trouble. And if you can't do more than 2 of these right, or if you can't do 2 of these right, your organization's going to fail. You're never going to succeed. And
Mhm.
this is something that I've kind of looked at over the years. And I ask all the students, hey, take a look at this. See if this makes sense to you. If there's something I'm missing, certainly please let me know.
Mhm.
But it's a good framework, I think. And then, so when we talk about mission, that's what we're talking about is how you've organized and how you're executing. And then pulled out some slides from the old LTR 300, which talks about what a mission statement is. And so when you're able to do your analysis, I'm sorry, my words just kind of ran through there and I made a joke. When you do your analysis, not a your analysis, uh, you you get some ideas to do that analysis. In other words, is was there a vision? Yes, Marriott and Salvation Army both assuredly had leaders with vision. From that, we've developed out a mission statement. Again, that enduring, who are we? If you look at my pyramid here,
Mhm.
that enduring statement. And then from there, we've got to develop out our strategy, how we're going to get from where we are to where we're heading.
Mhm.
And then we have to execute. We have to put that plan in place. Okay. Anyway, so you did a great job on that. And then I think we did, bear with me here.
Mhm.
Then I think we did our, analyze mission and mission statements. Again, a good job. And then on this, since this is turn it in, um, and that's a pretty good um, feature that shows up in Moodle.
Mhm.
Turn it in is not uh, something that tells me if you plagiarized or not.
Mhm.
Okay. What it does is and I'm showing it here on my screen, it shows me similarity. And all that is it tells me that your document had X% of word structure in it.
Mhm.
I don't know why we're running so slow. Bear with me here.
Mhm.
Okay. So your document had 8%, 12%.
Mhm.
Okay, which tells me that's a decent number. If
Mhm.
it was 0%, I'd be worried because that meant you did not bring anything in from outside work, which I want. In other words, you
Okay.
bring something in, a definition, or a phrasing or something from your readings or from a
Mhm.
text. If it was 100%, that would be horrible because that is pure plagiarism. You've
Okay.
completely copied and pasted somebody else's work.
Mhm.
Something in between is really what we're talking about. And again, Turnitin will not know if it's plagiarism or not. So as I've done here for you, if you don't mind,
Mhm.
it is showing, okay, some areas where, yes, you have some similarity. In other words, since you copied my question, then it says, oh, I've seen that before. It has a pretty extensive database.
Mhm.
All the papers that have been turned into University of Mount Olive, plus a lot of other areas to include internet sources, not all, but most. And then, oh, yeah, it's seen mission, preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it's seen that before. So what it's done is it's highlighted. So now I go in and I take a look and I say, all right, is this plagiarism or is this not? In this case, it's obviously not. You're restating the assignment, you're restating the mission. Again, remember, citation is the answer to plagiarism. In other words, if you've properly cited the work,
Mhm.
then it's not plagiarism. It's proper citation. And again, you don't want like 75% of your paper similar, because that means you've oversighted. You've
Okay.
done nothing but cite other people's work and not offered, your own. In
Mhm.
this case, as you can see, you have offered your own words and you put it in there.
Okay.
And so you did a fine job on this. And then, yeah, okay. So you were one of the few to really find that piece of the mission statement from Marriott. Talked about them. Okay. So uh, a good job in there.
Thank you.
We could have expanded a little bit more depth.
Okay.
And but it's hard to argue with a high grade. The when we talk about, again, a mission statement, one of the things that I was looking for was a little bit of comment there on a mission statement being that enduring statement of purpose.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason it's important is we've got to apply everything we do, whether it's an A&W root beer stand or whether it's an overnight stay,
Mhm.
to this mission of unsurpassed vacation and leisure
Okay.
experiences, which they have. So just kind of connect the dots a little bit.
Okay.
But no, you're tracking. You've always been, one of my better students, and I think, let me cut out of this. What am I trying to do here? Here we go. Well, I don't know why that keeps popping up. Else, okay, so I've done about enough talking because I've monopolized it all, and I
Mhm.
meant to let you have some time. So let me turn it back over. If this hopefully has covered what you were looking for.
But I need to be a little bit more detailed, and I think it's just hard to kind of get started, because you have so
Yes.
many different things going in.
Yes, it is. In fact, I mean to. I'm sorry. I'm sitting in my living room, and I had a pair of headlights flash through my room, which is a little
Oh.
a little odd, given the position of our house. It's normally not somebody's doing a 3-point turn in our street. It's just a little
Oh.
something that we're situated that headlights on the wall in the living room is not a good thing. Anyway, yes, you're doing fine, and again, part of that is looking out for is needing to know what the instructor is looking for. Um,
Mhm.
what I offer to you is I remember anything that's turned in that's being graded, what we would call a marked requirement,
Mhm.
uh, is for a reason. it's not because we will give you busy work and we just need to kind of
Right.
occupy your time. In the end, we're trying to show, I need you to show me mastery of those objectives that were listed in your syllabus. Okay, there were certain objectives that that this course had, and when you look at those objectives, then you have to understand that the assignments, the questions are all related to have you answer and demonstrate mastery of those objectives. In other words, your activities should relate. And in this case, they do, because the syllabus has been approved by the smart people. but in the end, what we're doing here is when you turn something in, you're showing me what you've learned and how you've mastered those objectives. So one of those ways is that when I throw out an open-ended question like I have, hey, analyze the mission statement for Marriott and Salvation Army, then partly what I'm doing is having you give me a primer, some people say primer,
Mhm.
a short lesson on mission statement. Okay, I know what a mission statement is. I've dealt with it for many, many years, and
Mhm.
I teach it. But I want you to do that. So going back and restating the question is a perfect start, and that's a good paragraph header, which I really enjoy, and I like what you did there. And then a real quick, hey, in my matriculation here at University of Mount Olive, we were taught a mission statement is an enduring statement of purpose. This is something that doesn't change. It's who we are. From there, Salvation Army's mission statement is still very I'm sorry, I lost how to speak. Is still very valid and demonstrates why both these organizations have been around for over 100 years or close to. I guess in the case of Marriott, they've been around almost 70, but
Right.
Salvation Army's obviously been around more than 100. Well, you don't last that long as an organization unless you are doing things right.
Right.
And so when you found that mission statement and you're doing things right to that mission statement, then you're going to be an enduring organization. Now within that, you have to innovate. You have to do those other things, lest you become a blockbuster or I don't know, maker of horse buggies, or or something around the turn of the century. Okay, and then yes, you would bring in an example from Salvation Army Marriott. Show me you've done the reading. Plus, these two books are still very good books. I know they're
Mhm.
they're a little dated, but some of these things are timeless, and I found fascinating, quite frankly,
Mhm.
just in how their approaches. And then you've basically got your answer. Then the key is to try to put this in a form that's not 20 pages long, although I don't grade on page length
Mhm.
or word count. If it, I enjoy brevity as much as the next person, but if it takes you 20 pages to make your point, then feel free to do that.
Okay.
Just don't fill it with a bunch of
Mhm.
stuff that I already know.
Okay.
You're regurgitating the history of Marriott.
Mhm.
So it's finding that balance.
Okay.
And this particular case, you've already gotten a measure of how you're doing. In other words, within within an A minus framework, and
Mhm.
then we just tighten it up a little bit. And then part of it is just what we're doing here is having a conversation. The benefit of this class for you and Amanda is It's just the three of us. So
Okay.
that becomes a little bit easier. I'm teaching another class, but that's neither here nor there.
Mhm.
And then part of it is, hey, I have to, be cognizant of, you're a busy lady. You've got quite a lot going on, and I appreciate that. It's not easy. I've been in your shoes before in part,
Mhm.
where I'm working full time. I've got a family. I'm chasing a degree. I've got a lot going on in my life. And by golly, it's becoming spring, and I like going out watching baseball games instead of sitting in the house in front of a computer.
I know.
So I've got to, be cognizant that some people just, this is the time they've got. And
Mhm.
so in the end, we'll figure it out. But I guess
Okay.
if nothing else, what I want you to take away from this session is your track. You know what you're doing.
Okay.
You I think see what it is, the method behind our madness here.
Mhm.
Where this course is a little different. You don't have a textbook for this course. You've already got your textbooks for this
Mhm.
course. You've had them in previous coursework. What you're doing is taking that you've learned, um, and already have had, and you're using that as part of an application of Salvation Army and Marriott readings, which is where we have the method behind the madness on that was giving you a for-profit and a not-for-profit organization to compare and contrast each other.
Mhm.
And as you know, even a not-for-profit had better bring in more in donations than they're spending on expenses, or they won't be
Mhm.
around.
Mhm.
Uh, it's just a designation of the IRS as to what they can do with those excess funds that are left over,
Mhm.
and how they must, commit them to their organization or provide them as retained earnings for their stockholders,
Mhm.
depending on what type of organization they are.
Mhm.
But in the end, everybody's got to bring in more than you spend. Otherwise, you're not going to be around much longer.
Right.
And you better use those funds wisely. You're,
Mhm.
got to be a good steward. Anyway, so we've been at this now for 40 minutes. I
Okay.
necessarily did not mean to keep you that long. But this has, I think, been a good session, and
Yes.
hopefully you've gotten something out of
Yes.
it. Did you have anything in particular for me at this point?
No, I
Do you
think you
feel
covered
like you're doing
everything.
okay?
Mhm. I was a little overwhelmed the first couple of days.
And that's certainly to be expected. Again, this is an unusual course. Um, it's a lot, I have to admit, it's a lot easier to teach in class than online,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you can allay those concerns and worries right off the bat.
Mhm.
Online, it's really, you're kind of cast out there on your own,
Mhm.
and yes, I can, cover some things, and put in some ask for help forms and all that. But if I don't even have the settings right, and so part of that overwhelming, I caused, and so I apologize to you and Amanda for that. I didn't have my settings correct on Moodle.
Mhm.
But the other piece is if that happens, then that's certainly time to open up
Okay.
and ask. But part of that is just, again, you're embarking on um, a new event, so there's always going to be
Mhm.
some apprehension.
Okay.
And then part of that is, we talked about in what class would that have been? Well, in LDR 300,
Mhm.
um, it would have been the class portion on fear.
Mhm.
And remember that the text defined it as FEAR, false evidence appearing real.
Mhm.
In other words, we are I think, you know, I think some of these studies that come out and show people they embrace change and they like change. They think they're able to change. I think some of those studies are a little bit misleading because if we are unsure of the outcome, we won't embrace change. We are fearful. We do have anxiety over something that hasn't occurred yet. If I told you, Crystal, next week, your paycheck won't be what you normally expect, are you okay with that change?
No, because I wouldn't
No,
know if it would be less or more.
that's exactly right. But if I told you up front, hey, next week, your paycheck is going to be changed to about $2.5 million. Let's call it 3 as a signing bonus. How do you feel about that change now?
Great.
So I think Tom Brady would think he wouldn't be happy. He, obviously probably gets a little bit more than you and I. But yeah, and that's just kind of the point is that false evidence appearing real, we are fearful of change because we don't know the outcome.
Right.
And as soon as we recognize that as just a human psychology, that's just the way we're wired,
Right.
and rightfully so. Then that speaks volumes on how we need to approach change with our loved ones or our subordinates. In other words, when I started realizing that, I took now an extra step that I never took with my wife and daughter. When I would talk about things that were going to be different or, things that we were going to do, in some cases, I thought they'd enjoy the surprise. They wanted, they'd like to see the adventure. And I didn't realize that I was also putting them under a lot of stress because I wasn't telling them where we were going so
Right.
that they knew how to dress, what to pack,
Yeah.
have extra money, blah, blah, blah. And so, even with the best of intentions, shows how men could screw it up bad. and then, but when I realized that, and then realized that with students, with coworkers, I work full time. It made sense. Was
Right.
hey, change can happen. One of the things, though, is if you want to get people on board, well, you got to demonstrate how, at the end of this change, their lives are going to be better, or they are going to resist it.
Right.
So I understand your apprehension, but again, you are tracking. You know what you're doing,
Okay.
and this course will be the same. I mean, there's nothing. It'll be obviously different questions. Like I said, next week is brisk, or this week is brisk. I think next week is what did I say was? Oh, how do we take care of people? The week after that is, I think some on motivation. In other words, your weekly assignments are tracking a leadership principle that you've had. In fact, there'll be one on, I'm sure, innovation, and one on teamwork. Well, coincidentally, you've had coursework on innovation and coursework on teamwork. In other words, that's kind of how we designed it. So, figuring out, pulling out what you've had, finding some pearls in the readings, which they're there. Every chapter is a good one, I think. And then, being able to kind of wrap that up and apply it. And then if you really want to, hit it out of the park, that final piece of it of, okay, how can I use this in my own leadership journey in the future, in my, future organization or my present organization, depending on what your plans are after you graduate. How can I use this in my career,
Mhm.
really provides a solid response that that's clearly A work.
Okay.
Not saying you're in it for the grade, but
Mhm.
we all want to know, how
What
to
we're
hit
doing.
it out of the park.
Right. Okay.
The only way you get an F in my class is if you don't do the work.
Okay.
You don't turn it in. That's obviously I can't
Mhm.
grade something
What you
that I
don't
don't
have.
get, and so those become zeros,
Mhm.
and those add up real fast, which we don't need.
Right. Okay.
But I encourage you, and like I said, unless you got anything else, we'll wrap up the session so you can get on and do what
Okay.
you need to. It looks like it's my turn to make dinner tonight.
Ho
So
ho.
I'm gonna, yeah, the girls already know what's coming. They know it's gonna be taco rice tonight. So both my wife and I served overseas in Okinawa, and that's a very popular dish over in Okinawa. So,
Mhm.
uh,
Taco rice. Yeah.
yep, it's basically just tacos, but instead of a hard shell, you
Do
put
the
it on a
rice.
bed of white rice. And
Mhm. Oh, okay. That sounds
so,
good.
yeah, they're kind of excited about that, making dinner.
Mhm.
Normally they're, you know, oh boy, he's cooking. That's not going to be good. They know I can't screw up taco meat.
Okay.
But thanks for joining.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. And, keep charging.
Okay. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Have a
All right.
great
Thank
night.
you.
You're
You too.
welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Just as a close off for everybody else that's watching this later or now, just letting you know, this was LDR 490, spring session second, University of Mount Olive. And this is 15 March 2002. I will post this video uh, in Zoom. You will find that I'm scrolling right here, weekly office hour Zoom sessions. All right. Take care.